One. Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you again this week. I got a great question, you guys. This is one that you probably don't think of very often, but the results can really revolutionize your business. And I want to hit you right between the eyes this week, right away, and ask you, are you a market leader? And I thought about that. And I'm like, I'm not a, fill in the blank, whatever you think, a Chevy or a Pepsi or a whatever, right? Not one of those. And then I started to think, and then the second question came up is, do you want to be? I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting angle. So I wanted to find the guy that, got me on this track. So I found him and I'm honored to be hanging out with Daniel Den. How are you today, my friend?
Hey, Dave, Melinda, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, excited to be here. That's a great way to start off the podcast episode, by the way, I might say.
Right? I mean, who doesn't want to be a market leader? But, we'll get into it. I appreciate you asking and challenging the listener right up front. So, you're co-creator of a company called the X Factor Effect Methodology. So it's like, holy cow, I love the X Factor. Everybody's got their own thought of what that means. So I want you to explain to the world right now, what is the X Factor Effect Methodology?
Yeah, so quick story to introduce it because, stories are fun. Uh, in 2009, I thought I had cracked the code, Dave. I had this website and it was the first of its kind. And I started making on multiple days $1,000 or more in commissions. And in 2009, $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than $1,000 in 2024. I mean, $1,000 in 2024 per day is great, but in
Yeah.
2009, that's like $10,000 a day, right?
Yeah. Yep.
um, and so I was literally like, oh, man, I would wake up and just like chill with the family every day and be like, man, I got this. Like life is easy. Entrepreneurship, business owner, uh, is easy. Growing a business is easy. And I mentally started planning my retirement. I promise you, Dave. And
Wow.
and I'm in my early 20s. I'm 41 now. So I was in my early
Okay.
20s. And I'm all like, I think you know how it is when you're in your early 20s. You think you know all the answers, and you think,
Oh yeah.
and especially if you have a win like that, you're like, man, I'm a baller. And so, long story short, after 6 months of just raking in the dough, I had somebody completely swipe my website. They just completely copied all my ads and copied all my ad copy, and they made a very similar version of my website. At first, I didn't feel it, but that one competitor turned into 5 competitors that swiped my website, that turned into 10,
Wow.
eventually more than 50. Like this was a good website. This was a profitable website. It was in the car insurance
Sure.
niche, and and then when all was said and done, when I finally kind of stopped running traffic to my own version of my own winner, I had over 100 plus copycat competitors,
Jeez.
and um, and then I was like, how did this happen? Like, how did I get so easily copied?
Yeah.
How? And so I started working with about 12 years ago to kind of crack this code and help others who have suffered from copycat competitors.
Sure.
We started creating this X Factor effect methodology. And when we started going deep into differentiating your business and going down the path of market leadership, what we realized is there's there's a couple of buckets when it comes to your business and how you can protect your business and grow your business and grow to become that market leader or category king or category queen. And there's things that you can do that are uncopyable. And then there's things that you can do to try to differentiate that are easily copied. And so for us, the X Factor effect methodology, it morphed into how can we stack your differences that make a difference so high that you become this very unique unicorn inside of your niche, where if somebody tried to copy everything Dave does, then
Sure.
at some point it's going to be so laughable that it just wouldn't work. Everybody would see you as a fraud. And so we started helping people to stack those differences that make a difference so high. And so for us, when you achieve the true effect of the X factor effect methodology, you have stacked those differences that make a difference, and you have become uncopyable, and you have gotten to the point in your niche where to some degree you have made your competition irrelevant.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I don't know who on this podcast this week has ever heard of Midwest Express, but Midwest Express was an airline out of the Wisconsin area. It was owned by Kimberly Clark when they first started the big paper company because we have all these paper mills in Wisconsin. And they were flying planes around all over the Midwest part of the country. And they were like two-thirds empty. And they're like, hey, our employees are on there. Why don't we fill this up with some paying passengers, at least make it a little bit profitable? So they created Midwest Express. The reason that I bring that up is they prided themselves, Daniel, on doing things that nobody else did. Back then, they only had two across leather seats. So every seat on the plane was first class. There was no coach. So big guys like me got to spread out and enjoy the flight. They had, before 9/11, they had great meals. They used everything was first class food. They used China, they used champagne. I mean, it was like top notch, and it was pretty close to the price of a normal airline ticket. The kicker was about 20 minutes before you're landing, you're sitting there enjoying everything, and all of a sudden you smell. I'm like, what is that smell? They made homemade chocolate chip cookies on the flight. So 10 minutes before landing, she's walking through, he's walking through with, would you like a couple cookies? Would you like a couple cookies? I mean, this was like brilliant, right?
That's cool.
And so unfortunately, 9/11 crushed a lot of that for them.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting sold off. But interestingly enough, we ask our clients and people on this call, like, what's your cookie? Like, what do you do that nobody else does? What is it for you? So, how do you ask that question, Daniel, to people listening? I say, what's your cookie? How do you kind of ask that in a way that people understand? What are you doing that nobody else is doing? I'm just curious.
I like to use an analogy in order to yours is what's your cookie? By the way, you reminded me of so many different stories. One of them, DoubleTree. They have if you've ever stayed at a DoubleTree and got their cookies, they are the most delicious cookies. They are so good. They
Right?
that's like that. Their cookie is actually a cookie. So if you want to experience what is your cookie that Dave is
Yeah,
teaching, go stay at a DoubleTree and ask
there you
for
go.
cookies. You can ask for as many as you'd like. By the way, most people don't know that. You just go back down to the front desk and ask for
Uh-oh.
more of
You've
those
heard, you didn't really
delicious
ask
cookies.
though, right, Daniel? You've never asked, you just saw other people asking, right?
Oh no, I just asked.
Yeah.
It's they were too good to pass up. Those are
Oh,
some
that's
good
awesome.
cookies. Those
Cool.
are some good cookies. Our so we use an analogy.
Yeah.
um, so what the analogy is this: imagine that you and most of the people inside of your business are apples. Okay, now amongst all the apples, the businesses that look at, let's say you're a brand new business and you jump in the market and you say, okay, I'm going to make money in this market too. And so
Mhm.
what most people do is they look around and they say, okay, what is everybody else doing? And they'll borrow an idea from Dave, and they'll borrow an idea from the competitor across the state, and even a few miles down the road, and they'll take all these borrowed ideas. They'll research things on the internet. Oh, what does everybody's logo look like? What are they doing on their websites? They collect all these little ideas from people inside of the same industry, and then they mix them all up. And what happens is they end up looking exactly like everybody else in the
Mm.
market. And
Fair.
and the color that comes to mind when it comes to apples, if you just mixed up a bunch of ideas, is, well, you're one of many green apples. Okay, you just mixed up all these concepts, and so once again, you're another green apple inside of your market. So if you can imagine a big bucket of green apples, it's everybody that in the market that's just looking to what everybody else is doing and just trying to borrow the best ideas. And then the aggregate of that is you look like everybody else. You're a green
Sure.
apple, which
Yep.
means that on average, you're going to go out of business within 10 years. That's
Mm.
the average fate of a business that looks like everybody else. I think the exact statistic is 65% of business owners go out or businesses go out of business within 10 years. And it's because of this effect of looking the same as everybody else. But then somebody comes along and they decide to do things different, but different in a way that their dream customers love and different in a way where you're still what the dream customer wants. So if your dream customer wants an apple, and you do something distinctly different and desirable, you can, in effect, become the one red apple that stands out amongst the sea of green apples. And when you do
Sure,
that, you're still an apple, and but all eyes on you because you're the one red apple amongst the sea of green apples. So our question is, how do we become that red apple? I have another
sure.
fruit analogy that I use as well. It's it's a fun one. There's actually there's the banana called the blue Java banana, and it has a flavor of, it kind of tastes like ice cream.
Mm,
And so sometimes we use the blue banana analogy as well. The banana actually has a blue tint to the
mm,
banana. So if you can imagine, when it comes to differentiation,
sure,
a blue banana is a very different, distinct thing, but it's once
sure.
again all eyes on you, very
Yeah,
desirable, especially if it's a banana that apparently has the flavor of vanilla ice cream.
sure. Wow. Well, so and I have a question for you, Daniel, because there's people listening right now from all over the planet, all different types of businesses. And I'm hearing them in their mind thinking, you know what, I don't have time to be a market leader. I don't need to differentiate myself. I'm okay being a yellow banana. I'm okay being a green apple. And then you kinda quote the 65% of businesses fail within the first 10 years. Is that I mean, I feel like there's somewhere in the middle where a lot of people are. They're trying to stay in business, but yet they don't wanna invest a bunch of time. Do you get a lot of resistance from people early on that think it's okay and they'll be just fine being a green, apple or a yellow banana?
I personally don't, because of the consequence of being a green apple is very obvious. So there's a recent Forbes article that says we're all exposed to about 4 to 10,000 different ads every single day, marketing pieces, ads, things vying for your attention, which is just
Sure.
insane. So in
Yeah.
2024, the amount of noise that's out there is just absurd. And
Yeah.
so, as with if you are a green apple in 2024, what happens is you go out and you try to market and you sell, and you keep on either hitting a ceiling, or you keep on actually being super frustrating, um, and failing. You have a lot of frustration and you end up not hitting your marketing and sales goals. And it's the result of the simple fact that you can't break through the noise because there's just too much noise out there in 2024. So a lot of, when it comes to the whole differentiation factor, the X factor effect, and breaking through the noise, it's we don't hit resistance with it when we're speaking with the right people. Now, if you are a category of one, so for example, let's say in Milwaukee, if you were the only painting company in Milwaukee,
Mhm. Yeah.
well,
Right? Yeah,
that's one
bonus.
happy that's one happy painter, right?
Yep, yep,
Um, but that's not the reality. So in any
sure.
case where you are a category of one, you already have a level of differentiation. But
Yeah,
in most markets today in 2024, there's just too much competition. You are not a
sure,
category of one. And instead of you being the only painter in Milwaukee, then you actually have 50 or 100 different painters that you have to compete with. And then it comes down to, well, is the paint that goes on the outside or inside of that house, is that considered a commodity to my dream customer? And if so, what do I need to do so that I become the clear, distinct alternative to the rest of the other 50 or 100 painters in my area?
sure. Well, but I guess to your point early on in your story, Daniel, is you were a category of one, and that still didn't prevent you from having knockoffs and people trying to, match what you were doing. So, I'm sure there's somebody on this call right now that's thinking they have no competition. Hey, I'm not here to say you do or don't. Just realize that, we just heard the story of somebody that didn't have competition, and all of a sudden, you turn around and look back and there's 100 people that are doing exactly what you're doing. So, assuming that most people on this podcast today listening are actually, in a sea of green, are there some simple things that you can share with them that would encourage them to turn to red? I mean, because again, people are like, I'm busy. I got to make payroll. I got to make rent. I got to sell something. I got to. There's all this stuff vying for their time. And this green to red thought process seems like when I get to it, I will get to it, right? And so, are
Right.
there some simple things that you've seen help people from go to green to red? Are there any things that you can share with us today?
Well, simple is an interesting choice of words. I'd say there is definitely very effective ways to go from green to red. And then there's ones that, well, anybody could easily copy you. In my case, I I had the website and I had web copy and even like the internet is still the wild wild west. So if you try to go after somebody for swiping your ad copy or website copy, you can, but good luck.
Right. Oh,
Like you're just asking for a bunch of headaches, right?
sure.
Um, and so when it comes to the painter, since the painter in Milwaukee, I don't know why I chose that one, but I
Sure.
did. So let's just stick with it. Um, a level of differentiation could be that if you are the only painter in Milwaukee putting out yard signs for a while, you're going to get a lot more leads than the other painters, and you're going to have a lot more success than the other painters. Eventually, and this is very much has everything to do with what happened to me in 2009. Eventually, somebody else is going to say, "Hey, this painter just I see his yard signs everywhere. Maybe that's working for him. Let me try it." And then they try it, and then they see it actually was working. And then you have a competitor, and they just copied something that was so easily copyable. And so you can
Hmm.
have an X factor that the barrier of entry to copy that is just too easy. It's too easy for somebody else to just also put out yard signs.
Sure.
Or you can have a level of differentiation, and we have 9 different pillars that we walk people through that allow you to, in some ways, become uncopyable. Um, I'll quickly mention just a couple of them for the sake of this
Okay.
example. So, for example, one of the pillars is to marry the perfect avatar. This is actually the only one that you pretty much have to do for all the other ones to work. Everybody
Okay.
talks about picking the avatar and blah 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 blah. Well, if you haven't done it yet, if you haven't dialed in and niche down with what avatar you want to work with, then you have to do it. It's just an undeniable fact of business. If you want business success, you need to work with the right avatars. And so if you're the only one, for example, as the painter, let's say you get buddy buddy with multiple HOAs in the area and you have different painting colors that are approved through the HOAs in Milwaukee. And if you're the only one that was smart enough to go and create those relationships and be the only approved painter vendor in
Sure.
those neighborhoods, you have successfully niched down and uh, and you are the category of one for those specific neighborhoods. And then when people are asking who should I go with, they say the HOA is also saying, hey, you got to go with Dave. He's the only
Yeah.
painter that's approved through the HOA, and he's the only one that guarantees that it's going to be the right colors
Sure.
according to. And then that's a very hidden X factor. Unless you have some extremely savvy competition, they will not know that you, Dave the painter, went out and created relationships with 30 HOAs and that that's how you're getting most of your jobs.
Wow.
Because it's a very hidden X factor. Whereas you could imagine the yard sign strategy, although that can work as well as
Yeah.
you, Dave the painter, one is very visible, one is very copyable, and the other one is very stealth. So
Wow.
that's in
Well,
that
and I'm
case,
just yeah, no,
yeah.
go ahead, finish.
Yeah, in that case, marrying the perfect avatar would be you as the business owner. In that case, your avatar was um having relationships with the people in charge of the the HOAs. That was your very niche down avatar that made the difference in your
Sure.
business. So
So I'm hearing, I wrote down the word evolving, and like, is it safe to say that like you say difference is the new better, and we're going to talk about that after the break, but I'm assuming that this is you're kind of always evolving. What made you red today might not make you red tomorrow in the sea of those apples. Is that a safe assumption?
I'd say that, well, yeah, we're always pivoting, we're always evolving, but there are certain X factors that stick for decades. For
Okay.
example, one of the pillars is to lead your tribe. There are there's companies that they have created very unique tribes that have been around for decades and that will continue to be around for decades. For example, Harley Davidson is a tribe
Hmm.
and it will continue to be a tribe for many, many, many decades. And you cannot take that away from Harley Davidson unless they
Yeah.
somehow actively work to destroy their own tribe.
Sure. Well, which they did when they tried to do Buell. They did that was an epic fail to try to get into that different type of motorcycle. They're not doing very well with the electric motorcycle. They tried to adapt just because I'm from Milwaukee, so we know this. They
Oh,
tried to
yeah,
adapt
nice.
that you know, the inclusion and all that, whatever that stuff is. They wanted to try to be more inclusive and it just doesn't work all the time. So I'm assuming that they're because I hear and you hear too that my great grandpa did it that way. My grandpa did it that way. My dad did it that way. I'm doing it that way. There are some times that that's good, but a lot of times
Right.
companies like Kohl's, I'm sorry, Kmart, Radio Shack, Blockbuster, these big monsters just kept thinking they were going to be able to stay in business that way, and so I'm assuming there's times that avatar changes, that
Yeah.
customer changes, and we have to really be in sync with that. My question to you before we go to break is that something that you guys help us with to try to, because that might be a big blind spot for people thinking that, hey, you know what, my avatar really doesn't change. It's been this way since the 80s. I keep doing it the same way. Is that a big blind spot, do you think, for people that you run into in this situation?
I'm gonna say it sometimes is a blind spot, and the reason why is because there's this little known analogy of how we run our businesses. I actually know it because I work with a bunch of the Brazilians, and we use this analogy in Portuguese. So um um you as the business owner, um if your business was a bottle, and so here we go, I have this bottle of liquid death. Here we go. You and your business are right here with this liquid death bottle. You, as the business owner, Dave, are inside the bottle and you're always inside the bottle. And you are trying to manage the brand perception of how the label looks from
Okay.
the inside.
Sure. Okay.
That's the analogy. And
Sure.
you will not leave the bottle, Dave, because you are the business owner. You're always
Sure.
in the bottle because it's your
Yeah.
business. You are constantly managing your brand perception and how your bottle looks on the outside, but from the inside. And so a lot of
Okay.
times you do need a coach like Dave or a coach like Daniel to come in and say, well, I'm on the outside and I see how your brand is set up. I see how people perceive you.
Yeah.
There are some blind spots simply because you are inside of the bottle and cannot see the outside brand perception because you are on the inside.
Wow. That's a great analogy. So yeah, let's take a break here, Daniel. When we come back, I want to unpack a couple more of these pillars and talk about your book. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm honored to be hanging out with Daniel Den, co-creator of the X Factor Effect methodology. And we started this topic off today about asking if you're a market leader. And so that's a question that, I saw in preparing for today, Daniel. Do you ask that question like point blank? Do you just ask somebody, hey, are you a market leader? Or do you kind of ease your way in on that? How do you like get that information out of people early on when you're chatting with them?
Well, our normal hook for people that come into our world, and that's why we have the book and the box experience. Our normal hook that most often works is the symptom that you're having trouble with your marketing and sales and having trouble breaking through the noise is very obvious to us. That if you're struggling with that, that you are not perceived as the market leader, the category king or category queen. Most people have ambitions of growing their business, of being big, of making lots of money. And so we lead with, hey, are you struggling to break through the noise? Do you feel small? Do you suffer from um, what we call the in the box paradox?
Hmm.
Um, and what most people that we speak with um, that have symptoms of, their marketing's not working or they have low sales, they you, if your marketing works and you have lots of sales if you're a market leader.
Sure.
And so
Well, but
that's
leaders got to be kind of, I want to just get a clarification from you on this, Daniel. Leader can mean a lot of things. Do you
yes.
lead in sales? Do you lead in, being the most visible? Do you lead in profit? Do you lead in customer experience? I mean, so I'm assuming that if I came to you and said, I want to be a market leader in my field, that means something completely different potentially to me than it does to you. Is that a safe assumption?
You would be 100% right in that. I mean, there's the painter that's trying to be the best, labeled as the best, perceived as the best in
Yeah,
Milwaukee. And then there's the Daves that aspire to be the Tony Robbins, which they will never be because Dave is not Tony Robbins. I am not Tony Robbins. But then there's the Daves that say, I am going to be the best when it comes to, the concept of purposefully growing. So the whole concept of like conscious capitalism and having a bit bigger impact with my business. I want to be the best in that niche, and I want to be known for that, and I want to become I want to have a Amazon bestseller around that
sure.
concept. And then, well, lo and behold, you're the only one really doing that. So my kind of inspiration for like how I want to be perceived as the best in my niche. So there's a really cool book. I believe it came out. I think the first edition of the book came out like in 1970, like before I was born. It might have been 80 or something like that. But it's called Differentiate or Die, and Jack Trout is no longer with us. So there is not a Jack Trout on Earth anymore.
Mhm.
Um, and if you think about who are like the X factor guys, that the people that help people break through the noise, that's what we are aspiring to be known as. Not We're not trying to be the next Tony Robbins. We're trying to be known as the X factor guys, the guys that help you
Gotcha.
break through the noise. And that's what we're trying to do. And so that to answer your question, that does look completely different than trying to be the best painter in Milwaukee.
Sure. Okay. Well, and I just because again, it's kind of like define success. Some people success means, one thing and success means something completely different to another. And
Yeah.
for people listening, if they want to learn more about you, we'll get to that in a few minutes. But I just want to make sure that they don't have to align with your definition of market leader. They don't have to they can do it in their own way, whatever that looks like to them. They might have a vision, they just don't know how to get there. And I'm assuming if somebody does not know how to get there, that's what you guys do at the X Factor Effect, is really try to help them create that path to getting there. Is that a safe way to look at it?
Yeah, yeah, over time. It's definitely building blocks, but first and foremost, let's help you with marketing that actually breaks through the noise, marketing campaigns that actually grab the attention of your dream customers and say, "Hey, this is for you. This is what you've been looking for." Out of
Yeah.
and so like going back to the 4 to 10,000 ads and marketing pieces that we're exposed to every single day, my one of my favorite questions, Dave, to ask people is, out of everything you were exposed to yesterday, what do you remember?
Yeah.
Now, when I ask this, the answer usually is nothing
Right.
because there's too much
Sure.
noise.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there's one thing that resonated, one thing that stood out. And so our first goal with people is, let's get you to that one, to becoming that one thing that stood out to your dream customers yesterday,
Sure.
where they like remember, like,
Yeah.
that was cool, that is what I need. And then that leads us down the path of doing all these other really cool things, strategic things to grow the business, and then solidify your positioning as becoming that market leader or category king or queen based on your perception of how you
Sure.
want to be that category king or queen.
And you've been talking a lot about marketing ideas. Do you have any, Daniel, that I won't use the word simple, but I'll use the word effective? Maybe that's a better word. Do you have any effective things that you've discovered over the years that, we can at least ponder as a business owner?
Sure, yeah. Actually, it's everything. It's the whole book, Ideas That Influence. It talks all about that. That's the that's
Okay.
the whole methodology for what we've noticed. And so there are seven main elements for marketing pieces that break through the noise. Out of those seven elements, if you can snag all seven of them, we've actually never seen marketing not work, meaning your marketing in
Yeah.
our perception should work without a doubt
Sure.
if you can check off all seven of the boxes.
Okay.
Most of the time, really, really, really good marketing will check off five or six of the boxes. But if you can hit all seven, and we have
Sure.
seen it done,
Okay.
then you've got a home run. If you'd like, I can quickly go through those seven elements, but that's
Yeah, I'd
what the
love
book is
to.
all
Yeah,
about.
just whet their appetite and let's get them
I'll
to
just
get
I'll
a copy
just
of the book.
list them off for the sake of, okay. So the marketing that breaks through the noise has these seven elements. One, it's focused on a single concept or idea. Remember, you're trying to break through the noise here, so it's got to be one big concept. Okay.
Okay.
Two, it puts your audience center stage. It's all about them. It's not about you and your business. It's all about the audience. It's all
Okay.
about the people you're talking to. Three, it has an X factor. We've talked about being different, having an X factor. So you got to stand out in some way.
Yep.
Four, you evoke emotion. The best marketing pieces evoke emotion. Now that could be it could be anger, but it's got to evoke at least one strong emotion. Lots of time
Okay.
it's joy, happiness. Um, the only emotion that doesn't really work effectively for marketing is sadness. That's a fun fact that we
Wow.
cover in the book.
Hey,
Sad
buy
mark.
my product. This makes you sad. How cool is that, right?
Yeah,
Wow. There
sad
you go.
marketing pieces do
Don't
not
work.
they aren't the best. They're not the most
Sure.
effective. Number five, you got to share a story. Russell Brunson always talks about hook, story, offer. So stories sell. If Dave and I were not sharing stories during today's episode, then you probably would have tuned out. But we're
Yeah.
smart enough to know the power of stories. And so the best marketing piece is share a story, even if it's a quick
Yep.
15-second story, it shares a story. Number six, the best marketing is sticky and shareable. And then seven, the best marketing pieces provide an aha moment. You're connecting neurons in people's brains where they're like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. So those
Wow.
aha moments. So those are the
That's
seven elements. We go into
wow.
depth throughout the whole book and the box experience, helping people
Sure.
craft marketing that breaks through the noise using those seven elements.
Wow, that's fantastic. So focus on a single concept, audience center focused, X factor, be different, evoke one emotion, share a story, sticky, and provide an aha moment. That's what I wrote down. So
Yeah.
hopefully everybody listening wrote something down or again commit to memory. If you're driving, don't pull over and do this now. Just listen again or get a copy of the book. So is this kind of, as we start to land the plane today here, Daniel, I'm curious, is this where you go from one to two to three to four? Do you kind of go that way, or can you start at one, go to five to three, or is this kind of in a chronological order, do you think?
With those specific seven elements,
Yeah.
all seven of those elements are very effective for breaking through the noise. We say, like, if you want to make sure that your next marketing campaign is a success and that it's gonna resonate with at least some of your dream customers, make sure you can check off at least five of these elements. Meaning, if you're marketing creative, your marketing campaign, your big marketing idea, if it only checks off three, like you're only sharing a story that evokes emotion, that provides an aha moment, it might work. But to guarantee it, you're going to want to make sure you can check off at least five of these elements. There isn't
Gotcha.
a specific order of importance, with exception of put the audience center stage. That's like, once again, the whole avatar thing. It's the,
Gotcha.
if you're not doing that one, then everything else is going to fall flat on its face.
Sure.
Um,
Okay.
if I had to
Mm,
put a second most important, it would be the whole X factor effect, the whole X factor concept, because different is what breaks through the noise in
gotcha.
2024.
So if you look at this from like Walmart's perspective or a big box where they don't focus on a single concept, they try to, you can get your teeth cleaned while you're getting your oil changed, at
Mhm.
the same place, super awkward. I don't feel like the big boxes are audience centered. They don't have a differentiation unless you say that you can get your oil change and your teeth cleaned as a differentiation. They don't really evoke a positive emotion. There's really no story. I don't know if you could probably say it is sticky because everybody knows it. I mean, some of these big names that we know don't really pass this test, but yet they're successful. So is this more of a small to medium-sized business concept path, or is this just for anybody that regardless of your company size?
Great question. The answer is not at all. This is especially important for big companies. And when it comes to following these seven elements, we don't follow them all at once every day for everything that we're ever doing.
Okay,
The best example of this would be McDonald's. So McDonald's, most people don't realize this, but they have marketing teams for multiple divisions of avatars that they're working with, meaning the commercials for the Happy Meals has a separate marketing team than the commercials for the McCafe.
hmm,
Now, McCafe, um, which isn't actually, it's not the worst coffee in the world. But those commercials for McCafe, they might be trying to attract people like you and I, Dave. But the Happy Meal commercials are not. And so when it comes to the big companies, they have big, massive teams that understand that with each marketing campaign, they have to still follow these elements. And so when it comes to that Happy Meal, the Happy Meal of the month, because they keep on switching it out every single month, the
sure,
Happy Meal this month, it needs to be focused on that single concept. Maybe it's
gotcha.
the newest Disney movie.
Sure. Okay.
and needs to put the audience center stage. In this case, the children. It's all about the kids having fun with the Happy Meal. It needs to have an X factor, something that stands out. Maybe there's a mechanism with one of the toys that is different. It needs to evoke emotion. It needs to share a story. It needs to be sticky. It needs to stick in those kids' minds enough where they beg Dave and say, Dave, take me to go get the Happy Meal.
You got to. Yep.
uh,
Absolutely. Wow. That's great.
um, aha moments. That one's a little bit different. I don't know how that one will work in the case
Sure.
of the Happy Meal commercial for
Yep.
targeting the kids. But in this case, if you've checked off 6 or 7 of
Yeah.
the
You're
boxes,
there.
then it's going to be a
Yeah.
marketing piece that breaks through the noise and works as long as you're talking to the right avatar. And so the big companies, they individually need to, every single time they put out marketing campaigns, they need to focus in on these elements in order to attract their dream customers.
Wow. That's awesome. I could talk about this all day. I got one more question for you, and I'm gonna let you go. What would your tip of the day be for somebody listening? Maybe it's something we covered, and maybe it's just something that we haven't had a chance to get to. But when you think about everybody listening today, what would your tip of the day be if you could share that with them?
Yeah. My favorite, my well, I've got a lot. I just today's answer, which is a really
Yep,
good one.
good.
If you ask me tomorrow, I'd probably say something completely different. But that's why it's the tip of the day, right? So
Absolutely.
in the case of the way our conversation has gone, um, my my tip of the day would be next time you go, if you're struggling with your marketing, next time you go to create a marketing campaign, try to get to the point where you feel like it's so good that you know it's going to work, where it's so undeniably good. It checks so many boxes. People like you've even like, you've done an MVP and you like shared with some of your customers, like asked them what their opinions were, and you're going to launch this and you're like, man, this is good. Like people love the story, people love what we're talking about. Like, and you just feel so good about it that you know it's gonna break through the noise. You know it's gonna work, but you just don't know how well it's gonna work. There's been a few times that in my own business, in my own businesses, I've done that where I've created something so good for marketing, sales, or a new product, even where I literally got to the point where like, this is good. Like this is exciting. This is gonna work. I just don't know how well it's gonna work. And it's a
Sure.
really good spot to be in for like putting stuff out there into the world in 2024, because once again there's just so much noise, but that
Sure.
filter is a great filter to use
Awesome.
and it can take you a lot further faster.
That's cool. Cool beans. Well, we have your book. It's called Ideas That Influence. So if somebody wants to pick up that book, where was the best place for them to go with that?
Yeah, the book and the box experience. Crazy enough, it's actually free. It's free plus shipping. You just pay shipping and handling. If you go to bigideasbox.com, then you get the book and you get the box experience. It comes with 5 surprise envelopes. Um, Dave has a copy. Uh, what'd you
There's a
say?
light, just to give you a hint, there's a light in the box. I'll just leave it at that. So that
It's
was
cool enough to
brilliant.
have a light in the box, which was easier said than done, by the
I
way.
guess
I
I'm guessing.
we
Yep,
had to make
absolutely.
sure that people's boxes weren't gonna catch on
Yeah.
fire.
And I was going to say, and didn't start on fire. Absolutely. So bigideasbox.com is a great place for you to go. So if people have been inspired today, Daniel, they want to learn more about the X Factor, they want to learn about those 7 things that we talked about in more detail. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, so little known secret, when you grab your well, because you get so many really cool things along with the box. But on the sales page, I actually promise it's just overlooked a lot of times. You get a free 20-minute call with me. And so
Hmm.
when you grab your free box, just paying shipping and handling, you also
Yep.
get a free 20-minute call with me.
Oh,
Um,
brilliant.
and and I have about 1 out of 5 people that buy the book that go ahead and sign up for that 20-minute call so that they can sit down and discuss some big ideas with me. And I'd
Excellent.
love to sit down with you and help you with some big ideas.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for unpacking this, Daniel. For people listening, if you are inspired, please reach out, grab a book, go to bigideasbox.com, reach out to Daniel and get that 20 minutes. It's a valuable 20 minutes of being able to get some inspiration from him, and he'll help you in push you, at least push you in the right direction. You know, that's the cool part is sometimes we as entrepreneurs, we don't want anybody in our stuff, but sometimes we need that first initial push. So I just challenge everybody today, excuse me, to reach out and connect. So thank you so much, Daniel, for all you're doing. Thanks for yeah, I opened my box and the book and there's a light in there and there's a book. I'm like, what in the world is, you know? So now you're enamored to like find out all these. There's like you said, there's 5 surprises in the book. So not going to spoil any more for anybody listening. Grab a copy and again, start that journey so that at least if you don't want to be a market leader, you're doing it intentionally. And because so many people want to be a market leader, but don't know how and don't know what that means. So, Daniel did a great job of laying out what that looks like. So, thank you so much for everything that you're doing and can't wait to keep learning from you.
Thank you, Dave. This was amazing. Man, this is why people love the Positive Polarity podcast. Such great times, great content. Thank you so much.